time now is 9:52.
A century ago, London's Corinthian Football Club was one of the best in the world. But during a tour of Brazil in 1914, the First World War broke out.
They returned home, dodging torpedo fire en route to fight on the battlefields of France. They lost more men than any other club in the world. Now, 100 years later, the name lives on in two very different corners of the world.
Corinthian-Casuals play beside a dual carriageway in London, while Corinthians-Paulista is Brazil's most successful club. And in a new documentary, the two have been brought together in a match that neither side will forget.
We'll speak to the director in just a moment. First, let's have a look.
Vai crescendo a expectativa para o início do jogo, para o reencontro do Corinthians com a sua torcida. E os dois times vêm para o gramado. O Corinthian-Casuals trazendo seus jogadores, eles entram intercalados, 1 a 1. Nessa festa histórica. Um dia histórico para o torcedor do Corinthians. E por que não para o futebol brasileiro? O Corinthians, que é um time de história significativa, representativa no futebol brasileiro.
Well, Chris Watney, the director, is with us now, and you're just explaining the significance of that particular moment. Just explain, who's in the line-up there?
In the line-up there was the Corinthian-Casuals, which are an amateur team in South London, in Tolworth, and you have Danny Bracken, who's a primary school teacher, and Jamie Byatt, who's a scaffolder from Tooting, playing against the Corinthians-Paulista, who were the world champions at the time.
Yes, yeah, I mean, so that's the moment in time now, but then take us right back to where it all began.
It happened.
This extraordinary journey to Brazil.
Yeah.
And then what happened
Well,
afterwards?
100 years ago, the Corinthian Football Club were the first real global icons of football, and they are the club credited with popularising the game around the world. And in 1914, they were going to Brazil when the First World War broke out, and they decided to immediately return home, and they didn't play the matches they were scheduled to play in 1914. And they came back, and the club sadly lost a record number of men for a football club in the First World War. And so we decided to try and take the team, the modern-day Corinthian-Casuals, back to Brazil to fulfil those matches that were never played 100 years ago.
And you're a member and a player of the Corinthian-Casuals as well?
Yeah, I've been a member since 1999, and it got to the point in 2013 where the club isn't particularly rich. It's a very poor club. And the chairman was worried about how to pay the bills and all that sort of thing. And I said, well, my job is primarily in media, and could I try and make a film to tell the world the story before it's too late? And so we said about that. Obviously, it's the 100-year anniversary of the First World War. There's this incredible story of Brazil. And the Brazilian fans, 30 million Corinthians-Paulista fans in Brazil, just took to it and actually were really the driving force to get us back to Brazil to play this match.
And within the club of Corinthian-Casuals, are there family dynasties, links between now and then?
Sadly not. We know of a few who are connected still, but sadly not. It's fallen is perhaps the wrong word, but it has changed a lot. The club has changed a lot. 100 years ago, the club were the greatest team in the world, and we know we're not that anymore. And we still have connections, but there isn't anyone in the team with that connection.
Shall we see more from the film?
Yeah.
That's it.
Because they were public schoolmen and because they had come through Oxford or Cambridge University, the army appointed them as the officers. They were the leaders of their men. And in trench warfare in the First World War, it was those people who led their men across the line into the charge. It's probably why the Corinthians lost more men than any other football club, was because as officers they were just wiped out.
No one at the time understood how that war was going to work out. No one understood that it was going to be a trench war, and no one understood that it was the officers that were going to be first over the top. They were the first ones. They were the ones that met the hail of bullets, but they had to lead their men. That was their role in society. That was their caste. That was their honour.
people who played for the Corinthians at that time? Because they became officers, didn't they? They were leading to a certain extent.
The Corinthians were primarily Oxbridge guys. They were public school guys, and so therefore they were the officer class. And that's really why I think we lost a record number of men for any football club, was because they were the first over the line. You know, it was their duty to lead their men, and the club was just decimated. And that glorious generation who took football around the world then sadly died fighting for its freedom.
Can we bring it up to date and this match again? How did the team feel? Because you've not laboured the point, but you've made very clear that the Corinthians aren't as successful as they once were. So probably not used to playing to crowds of thousands, yet when you played in Brazil, different story. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, our average attendance is probably about 130, and we turned up there and played in front of 30-odd thousand. 2 Brazilian national television stations televised the game live to the millions watching, and we turned up in Brazil as if we were the Beatles. There were scenes at the airport that you're seeing there where we came out of the plane and just there was this crowd there to welcome us, and it was absolutely extraordinary.
And can you give us a kind of... You actually played a match, did you?
Yeah.
Give us a sort of 10-second summary.
No, don't spoil it.
Oh, no, maybe we shouldn't say.
It was 0-0 until the 78th minute.
OK, that's the perfect place to leave it.
Yeah.
Perfect
nice
place to leave it.
Very good.
Chris, it's been a joy talking to you. Thank you so much. Good luck with the film as well.